types of interviews you may be faced with, how to present yourself, and how to get to the next step when an offer is being made. So, 2 steps. Resume, get the interview. Interview, get the job. Step 1, step 2. Today is what? Step number 2. So we want to speak and talk about and discuss the different and understand the different types of interviews that might come up. And there are quite a few. Well, you just don't go to an interview without doing what? Putting together or planning some strategy. There's an old expression, plan your work, work your plan. I'm sure many of you have heard that. Plan your work, work your plan. Plan your work, work your plan. There's another one. You could wind up someplace else. How's that one? How's that for a philosophy? If you don't have a plan, you could wind up someplace else. So it's important for you to get ready and prepare for that interview. Now, those of you, of course, working with a consultant, that's what we help you with, so don't be afraid to ask for help. When you have an interview coming up and you know you're going to have one, you have to take the responsibility and call your consultant, let he or she know you've got an interview. And I do with my folks. Anytime I get a phone call from one of my clients, and hopefully I get many, hey, Pete, I've got an interview next week. Let's have a discussion. And we'll spend good time talking about the company, what they do, the products, the financials, and we'll talk about putting together an interview strategy. How to answer questions effectively. Part of your preparation is to know in advance what questions may come up. You never want to sit at an interview like deer in the headlights. A question is asked, and you sit there, and you don't know how to answer it. Communicating your value, and one of you brought that up. Yeah, part of getting the interview is being able to talk about and communicating your value. That's what's going to generate the phone call. So we'll talk about communicating your value. Believe it or not, a lot of people do not know how to close an interview. There's some steps you need to take, and we'll talk about some of those this afternoon. Now, in CRN, all right, there is a book, and the book is known as Managing Your Search Project Book, and there's an acronym, MYSP. All right, that's what it stands for, Managing Your Search Project Book. The book is in CRN. It's in the Resource Tools Library under Quick Links, and there are 10 steps or chapters. All right, it's a big book. It's 202 pages. Promise me and promise yourself you're not going to print it. I only want you to download it because if you print it, number one, you have to think green. You're going to kill trees, and number two, it's going to cost you $25, $30 to replace all the ink you wasted by printing it. So all you need to do is download it in a PDF, put it on your desktop. It's a great reference guide. There are 31 pages, pages 143 through 174 in the book, that deal with interviewing and also negotiating. So after our session today, if you can, go in and download the book. And if you have some time tonight and tomorrow, literally sit down. It'll take you about an hour. I'd like you to read it in detail, like you're reading a textbook. Don't even read it as a novel, all right? Don't skim through it. Read it as a textbook. Now, John just chatted me, and I'll let you know again, it's located in CRN. It's located in the Quick Links. All right, it's also in the Resource Tools Library. All right, let me type that in. All right, let me do that for John and everybody. So CRN, go to Quick Links, go to the Resource Tools Library. All right, and right in the middle, down halfway through, scroll down through the library page, you'll see the book. It's a hyperlink. Click on it, download it, and save it. Don't print it. All right? Okay, John? All right. Some of you already know about it, but those of you that don't, it's a great tool not only for interviewing, but it takes you through all the different steps, resume writing, interviewing, LinkedIn, lots of good information, 10 different chapters. All right, 10 different chapters about knowing who you are. All right, when you are at an interview, all right, this is kind of interesting stuff. I really believe it. This is one of my favorite webinars. When you're at an interview, all right, when you get the phone call, come on in, Bill. When you're there having face-to-face, there are 3 things that you and the company, the hiring manager, are thinking about. And they are. 3 of them are, we refer to these as the 3 C's. They are competence, compatibility, and chemistry. All this is also in that chapter milestone number 9, just FYI. Now, you need to be thinking about, what are you thinking about? Well, does this position make good use of my skills? Now, the interviewer is thinking, well, do you, John, or the candidate, do your skills have the job to kind of do it? All right. Are you compatible? The interviewer is saying to his or herself, do you as a candidate, does your work style fit with our culture? And you are thinking all the time during that hour interview probably, work best or do I work best in this kind of environment? The third C is the love fest. Do I love you? Do you love me? The chemistry. Can I relate to this candidate? Am I going to want to work with he or she? And you are saying to yourself, I've now spent about an hour. Is this somebody I want to work for? Or maybe there's some direct reports that you might meet. So keep in mind compatibility, competence, and chemistry, the three C's. Believe it or not, there's one more. All right, those are three of the four. The fourth C is something that you, all right, not the company, would be looking for, something that you and you alone. Anybody want to take a wild guess what that might be? It's not confidence, but good guess. The answer, and Hannes, and a couple of you, and Keith, compensation. All right, compensation is the fourth C. And the reason for it being the fourth C is, you know what? Are they going to be able and willing to pay me what my value is? That's something that you're going to be thinking about. Not them, but you, all times, starting from the very beginning you walked in the room to the time you leave, if there's not an offer being made. Are they going to be able to afford and pay me my value? So three of the C's are on common, competence, compatibility, and chemistry. And number four, something that you're working on or thinking about, are they going to be able to afford me? Are they going to be able to pay me? Compensation. Now, when are interviews conducted? And we're going to break it down into two areas, and then we'll get into more detail as we move forward. Either by phone or in person. All right, and we'll talk about Skype or video interviewing in a moment. Now, many times you may get a phone call. Bill, can you come in tomorrow? This is Bill, Pete from Human Resources. I'm doing some screening right now. I'm just trying to get to meet some people, or maybe a hiring manager. But it could be on the phone. So if you do get a phone call, make sure that you are in a professional environment. If you're in the car driving, if you get a phone call, you're not supposed to answer it unless you have a hands-free, right? Let them know you're in the car, and this is really not a good time or place for you to be talking or interviewing. You may be in Walmart. That's not really a convenient or a professional place for you to be. So, let them know. Now, if you're in the house and it's quiet, make sure you're in a very quiet room. You're not in the kitchen or the bathroom. When you're in a kitchen or a bathroom, it sounds like you're in a tin can. So make sure you are in a professional environment. Prepare the same as you would for a face-to-face. Consider your voice, your tone, your inflection. A couple of tips. Number one, stand. Believe it or not, when you stand, and I've got to tell you, I'm standing right now. Believe it or not, I have a stand-up, what they call a stand-up sit-down desk. And when I'm in the office working, writing, working with candidates, my desk is in the low position. But when I'm hosting a class, I raise it, I stand, and it becomes my lectern. You can do the same. Try and stand during a telephone interview. Have something to drink, maybe a bottle of water, and please bring a smile. Now, consider a phone interview as an open book test. Considering they can't see you, right? They can only hear you. Why not have all of your notes in front of you? A copy of your resume, maybe a copy of your cover letter that you sent, maybe some research you did, maybe some information from Dun & Bradstreet, maybe information from LinkedIn. Maybe you know the person or the name of the person. It wouldn't be a good idea to go onto LinkedIn and see if you could find him or her, all right, and see what you can pull up. Maybe they went to the same university, all right? Great side dialogue. So consider it as an open book test, kind of having your cheat sheets. So that's some basic tips when you're going to be on a phone. Can anybody else think of anything else that might be important on a telephone interview? Speak up or send me a chat. Do you want to do it in your PJs or do you want to get dressed? The in-person interview is a make or break. Your job is to get your foot in the door. So when you do have an in-person interview, simply try and confirm the dress code. If you're not sure, can't figure it out, haven't been able to tap your network, you have no idea, guess, but yet dress one level up. So bottom line, dress professionally. To me, basically a nice dark suit for a gentleman with a tie, and of course the same for a lady. Pantsuits are very acceptable now, so why not? Solid white blouse. Usually the question comes up, can I wear open-toe shoes for the ladies? During the summer, you might be able to get away with out wearing hose, possibly an open toe, but during the winter, spring, and even the fall months, definitely a closed toe. But use your best judgment. All right. Now, first impressions are critical. All right, they really are. You can't take back a first impression. So we'll get into more detail in a couple of minutes, but those are some basic guidelines versus a phone versus an in-person interview. All right, and we'll talk about the day of the interview toward the second half. Now, screening interviews, and there are two types. Number one, it might be done on the phone. All right, we talked about phone interviews just before. Now, the phone interview might be from somebody from Human Resources. It's probably not going to be your next boss. It's not going to be the hiring manager. And the reason it's going to be an HR or a recruiter, whether it be in phone or in person, is that the company received maybe 100 resumes. And, the hiring manager is not going to want to deal with it. So he says to Human Resources, look, here are resumes. I'd like you to cull through them, and I'd like you to pick out, 10 or 15 of them, and I'd like you to make some phone calls, and I'd like you to do some pre-screening. And after you've done your screening, I want you to give me only 5. All right? I don't want to deal with 15 or 20 or 1,000 of them. I only want 3, 4, or 5, whatever number it is. All right? And that's when the hiring manager gets involved. So the purpose of a screening interview is to really screen out unqualified candidates and create a short list for that hiring manager. Now, think about phone, even in person. Make sure that whatever you do, you demonstrate your fit with the job based upon the job description and the posting. I always recommend that whenever you see a job opportunity, you print the job description or the posting and buy or use a yellow highlighter or any type of highlighter and highlight the keywords on that job description. Because at some point in time, your job now is to match, all right, and be able to demonstrate what they're looking for. And they tell you what they're looking for in the job description posting. So buy a yellow highlighter or orange or whatever color you like and highlight the keywords and phrases and sentences. Be prepared for detailed questions regarding the resume you submitted, along with, which includes your work history. They're going to call you because they want to know more, right? They like what they see so far and read so far, but they want to know more. So be prepared to be able to talk about and explain and discuss some of these questions that will be brought up because they want to know more. No matter what you do, you never want to be negative about anybody you ever worked with, your former company. So when you're asking them or they ask you, hey, Bill, why did you send me your resume? Why did you leave your last job? What happened? That is known as your exit statement. Make sure it's positive. It's all about where you want to go versus that company that you worked for. Never say anything negative about them. Bring a smile, all right? It can make a difference. It's part of the first impression. Now, if it's on the phone, all right, the screening interview, you want to stand, just as we shared with you before. Now, the goal on a screening interview, since they are going to create a short list, is do nothing more than, number one, stay in the race. And I like to say it, these are my words, stay in the hunt, all right? You want to stay in the hunt. Because if you're screened out and you're not part of the short list, it's over. So you have to do everything you can, prepare for that screening interview, demonstrate your fit, be prepared for detailed questions, stay positive, and bring a smile. Now, even if you're on the phone, bring a smile. All right, any questions? Do you guys have any questions? How many of you, have either been on one side or the other for a panel interview? Everybody send me a chat. No ifs, ands, or buts. Everybody. Person, it could be 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, or more, or less, but definitely more than one. So the people that would be or could be in a panel interview would definitely be your next boss, the hiring manager. It might be a team member. It might be somebody from HR. It could be a C-level or an executive sitting in the corner of the room, just auditing, sitting and watching and observing. But the people will be active. Each of them probably will have questions pre-designed to ask you. All right? And if it's a team member, it might be a question about your ability to work on a team and how you've worked, and maybe give some examples of other things you've worked on as a former team member at another company. The hiring manager is going to have questions maybe more about asking questions if you have them relating to the benefits that are in the company. So everybody's going to be asking questions. So type of stuff. It's important for you to try and develop rapport. If you're not sure, and hopefully you'll probably know right away who the next boss is, who holds the power. If you're not sure, try and figure it out. Try and gather business cards. Now, you may know, or the Human Resource Division may send you an email letting you know that there are 5 people you'll be interviewing with and their names, their positions, titles, and their email or contact information. If not, and this is kind of a surprise, try and gather and find out their contact information. And the best way to do it is to try and gather a business card from everybody. And a good way to get a business card is, guess what? To give one of your own. How many of you have, I call them personal networking cards, not business cards, but personal networking cards? Be honest. All right. Kind of a 50-50. Actually, about 60-40 no. So, here is our suggestion. Today is Wednesday. If you have nothing to do after we finish, either go on the internet or take a drive to your local Staples or office supply store and have some made. Here is what a very down and dirty business card or networking card might look like. Your name, not mine, but your name. Maybe this is optional. Your brand, chemical engineer, human resource professional, IT person, whatever. A phone number, an email address, and also your customized LinkedIn URL. That's your basic. Now, some people want to get fancy if they're in web development or something that might be more creative. That's okay. But, a CPA and accountant, I probably would keep it really simple. Engineering also. Now, some people will print on the back some information like some skill sets or competencies or some specific accomplishments. That's optional. All right? You can get really involved in this, but this is the bare bones minimum. And they don't cost a lot of money. Staples, I know Vistaprint was running a special 500 cards for $9.95. I'm not sure if they still are. But Vistaprint, whether it's Vistaprint.com or CA for those of you in Canada, have some made. Or Staples, Office Depot, Kinko's, wherever. But get some made. It should be a project you want to work on over the next day or two. Only should take about 24 hours to have them made. Really minimum. You're probably under $20. Now, whether you want to keep your brand on here or not, that's also optional. If you want to be generic, that's okay. Now, I got to tell you, I've always had these for many, many years. And I always carry my Lee Hecht Harrison official, Lee Hecht Harrison business card. And I also carry 3 or 4 of my own personal cards. How many times have you been someplace and somebody says, "Hey, Jim, give me your email address," and you have to look for a cocktail napkin or a pen or something to write with, right? I'm sure everybody's had that experience. Guess what? Take it out of your wallet. Give it to them. Now they have your phone number, email, and all that good information. So these are not only good for job search, but they're good for life, all right? So you never know when somebody's going to ask you for something and you can't find something to write on or something to write with. So please have some made. All right? Any questions? All right. Do you all agree that you need them? All right. Everybody send me a chat. Do you all agree you need them one way or the other? All right. I'm glad you do. Glad you agree. All right. It's part of life. You never know when you can't find a cocktail napkin or a pen or something to write with. All right, let's continue. Now, case studies. Case study interviewing is few and far between, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time. I just want to make you aware it might happen. Excuse me. A case study is all about solving a business issue. It's not about an answer. It's all about solving a business issue. You may want to ask, should you be involved or being asked to prepare a case study, you may want to ask some questions to clarifying what the issue is, the problem, and discover the root cause. Here's a question. Let me explain how it works. How much, all right, let's do some math. How much is 2 and 2? What's the answer? Video, and this is the question that came up about what to wear. There are 2 types of video interviews. Number 1 is recorded, and number 2 would be the two-way, otherwise known as Skype, or face-to-face, or FaceTime. Recorded video interviews, the way it works, if you're not familiar, you'd be sent an email, and on the email would be a hyperlink, a web address, and you'd be asked to do a cut and paste and put that web address into your browser. Hit enter, and you would receive information, and either a person or a copy would be at the bottom of the screen, excuse me, asking you questions like you would on a regular face-to-face interview. They may say you've got 30 seconds to think or answer the question, 60 seconds, it'll be timed, and after the end of the interview, and they're usually 20 minutes to a half an hour, they're usually not that long, you'd hit submit or enter, and it would often fly back to the company. And somebody at the company would review it, make notes, and then possibly take you to the next step. You can actually practice. We make available in the CRN. If you go to Quick Links and go to the Interview Center, you can literally and actually practice recorded interviewing. Right? This is available. It's a tool we want you to work with. So why not play with it? Why not learn how to do it? All right? So please, in the Learning Center, you have the interview in Quick Links. You have the Interview Center. Now let's talk about Skype. All right, two-way, if you want to use the term Skype, video interviewing. It is like being in person because they can see you, right? So no matter what, dress as you would if you were literally face-to-face. All right, dress professionally. Because of bandwidth, HD cameras, megapixels, all that funky stuff, you want to make sure you avoid bold patterns. For the ladies, avoid wearing any distracting jewelry. Minimize your picture, look directly into the webcam, and limit body movements. Let me come back to look directly into the webcam. Here's a couple of tricks. Number 1, when you're doing a Skype or video interview, if you look at the monitor, you look at yourself, you look at the people that you can see, you're not looking at the webcam, you're looking at the monitor. Hence, you lose eye contact. The only way you're going to be able to maintain eye contact, and that's important, is to look into the webcam. All right, try and avoid looking into the computer or the monitor or even looking at yourself. Another suggestion is, remember we talked about standing? Find a place in the house that you could prop up your computer, laptop, at maybe shoulder level so that you're not looking down or looking up, but you can stand, and it'll help you project a little bit better. And by raising it up, you can actually have notes, like a sticky note or sticky notes, adhered to the side of your monitor on the table, kind of like having cheat sheets. So it's a lot easier for you to actually conduct your end of the interview. So look directly into the webcam, raise it up, so you'd be in a standing position rather than a sitting position. Check the lighting. Right, check the lighting in the room. Maybe if it's not well lit, they're not going to be able to see you. Now also, if the lighting is behind the webcam, that's good, or above. If the lighting is behind you, or let us say you're standing in front of an open window, it's called backlight. All right, any of you that ever have done a little photography, it will close the iris, all right, of the lens of the camera. And when the lens of the camera is exposed to extra lighting and it closes, they're not going to be able to see you. You're going to appear very dark. webcam toward a neutral background, a blank wall. If you face the webcam toward your bathroom door, maybe your kitchen refrigerator, you do not want people asking you, "Hey, Jim, what is that behind you? Is that your refrigerator?" "Oh, that's kind of a neat refrigerator. When did you get it?" So you want to try and avoid any of that type of stuff. So check out your lighting, face the webcam toward a blank wall. All right? All right, and think about it. Any ideas that you may think of? All right, I have another math quiz. All right? Remember 2 and 2 is 4, but here's another math quiz. This is a little bit more difficult. The experts claim that 55% of how we communicate is through our body language. A little bit more than half. And a lot of that has to do with eye contact. All right? 55%, a little more than half. The other 45%, a little less than half, are made up of the words we use in our voice. 38 and 7 equals 45, right? When you're on the phone, they can't see you. Body language goes away, right? They can't see you. No eye contact. What does the other 45% become? What's the number? What's the percentage? Troy is right. Stephen is right. All right, we have a couple of... Well, the correct answer is 100. All right, a little bit difficult, a little bit different. Since they can't see you, all right, and the 55% goes away, the 38 and 7 becomes 100. 100% of our communications now are the words and our voice. All right, you get it? Of the 80-20 rule, preparation and execution. How many of you have heard of that? Of what we do in life, just forget about job search. 80% of what we do as humans is getting ready, preparing for it. And the act of it or doing it is only about 20%. All about getting prepared and then doing it, executing it. If you think back to high school and college when you had a final exam, maybe on a Friday morning, you did what? You didn't take the exam without doing what? Studying, cramming. You prepared for it. And if you properly prepared for it, you were successful and hopefully got a good letter grade, like an A. If you didn't prepare, you probably got a letter grade like or a D or an F. So the same applies in job search. So it's all about preparation, like the Boy Scout motto, be prepared. So develop and work on your accomplishment stories, SOAR, SOAR. What do you know about the company? All right. What have you learned about them? Well, if you don't know anything about the company and you're going for an interview, you got a problem. All right. So take advantage of research, Dun & Bradstreet, CRN, the Hoover's database. Learn about the company, the industry that it's in, the trends, what's going on, up and down, good or bad, competitors, stock prices, the culture. What do these companies make? Learn as much about the company, the industry, products, etc. What do you know about the opportunity, the actual position? Review that job description. Remember I mentioned about highlighting the keywords? Read it inside out, upside down, backwards and forwards, front to back to front. Review it, understand it. Ask yourself, what skills do you have that match what they're looking for? That's what ties it all together. Look in a mirror. Ask yourself, would you hire you? Would I hire myself? If you can answer yes, and you've done your prep, you've done your homework, you're going to drive and go to that interview with your head held high and be fully confident and be successful. If the answer is I'm not sure if I'd hire me or no, don't even bother going because you're not going to be successful. It's all about being totally prepared. It's nothing more than what? How do you solve their problems? Now, about a year ago, my wife and I were doing some work around the house. We needed to hire a carpenter to do some kind of small carpentry work in our kitchen. And we got recommendations of a few people. One of the people showed up without anything. All right, didn't bring any samples, didn't bring any pictures. He just showed up to say hello and talk. The other person came with some pictures of some of his work. But the other person came with not only pictures, he came with pricing, hourly pricing. He also came with examples, products, samples of his work. Guess which one we hired? Yeah, we hired the one that was able to solve our problem, that was able to demonstrate. So make sure you can show and demonstrate how you can solve their problems. That's where you're going to be hired, not because you're good looking, whether you're handsome or pretty, but how can you solve their problems? You're problem solvers. Salary. What do you know about what that job may be worth? What that industry pays? There are websites like salary.com, Glassdoor, PayScale, Indeed. Do not use any one individual. Use all of them. They're all pretty much the same, but they're a little bit different. I hate to say it that way, but try and figure out maybe a median average, all right, of all of them, and you'll have a pretty good understanding of what that job may be paying, and it'll give you a good sense of what your range should be. Now, those of you in Canada, the Canadian website is workingincanadagc.ca. But what do you know about the company? Be prepared about the position, and be prepared to discuss and know about salary. More 80-20, more interview prep. Branding, accomplishments. Now, they called you because they read your resume, they're interested in you, and they probably want to know more about your accomplishments, all right, those bullets on your resume. They want to know more. So make sure that all your stories that you can verbally talk about and demonstrate are all configured around SOAR. That's our acronym for Situation, Obstacle, Action, Result. We have a webinar called Creating Powerful Accomplishment Statements. But at the interview, it's not about writing them, it's about talking about them, creating a story. Understand up and down, inside out, backwards and forwards the resume you submitted. How many flavors of ice cream does Baskin Robbins have? Anybody want to take a guess? All right, 31. All right, 31 is the correct answer. So they claim. You could have 31 variations of flavors of your resume. So make sure that the resume you submitted, you'll be able to discuss and talk about when you're actually having your interview, and possibly even a cover letter you submitted. Communication strategy is a webinar. And in the webinar, we talk about the positioning, tell me about yourself statement, and your exit statement is why you left your former company or what happened there. So make sure when they ask you, hey, Bill, why did you send me your resume? What happened? Why are you looking for a job or a new one? You'll be able to explain what happened, your exit statement. Or they may say to you or ask you, hey, Bill, tell me about yourself. That is the positioning statement. So that could be one of the first couple of questions that might come up right at the beginning. Additional resources in CRN. If you go to the homepage, Resource Tools Library, quintcareers.com is a website you could use. So more about 80-20 preparation regarding your branding. Interview practice, target questions. And we're going to do our yoga break right after we complete this slide. Think about some of these questions. And when you go to an interview, remember an interview is not a one-way, it is a two-way street. So you have a responsibility to work on and think about and have questions to bring with you to share and go over and discuss with the hiring manager, such as maybe learning more about the priorities that the company's under, their mission, responsibilities that may be in addition to what you've already read on the job description, resources available to accomplish. Who am I going to be reporting to? Who am I going to be working with? Who might be reporting to me? Level of authority. You may be even given an ORG chart. All right, performance measurements. What are your expectations of me over the next couple of months, 6 months, 9 months, or even a year? Corporate culture. Now, bottom line, be prepared and know what to expect. And here's what I love to say is expect the unexpected. The more you can think about or anticipate what might come up, the better off you are. In addition to these questions, always ask this. Why is the position open? All right. I'm typing as we speak. There are many reasons a position might be open. Number one, maybe you're filling the shoes of the person you're interviewing with, right? They got promoted. Maybe somebody retired. Maybe there's growth, right? They're adding people to a department, maybe going in another new direction or an additional direction. So lots of reasons. Always ask why. And based upon their answer, you may want to direct another question, such as, well, I appreciate you letting me know that there's somebody in the job right now that is not being able to accomplish, and like to know what that is so I can kind of let you know what I can do, so I can tell you what I can do. Now, another one is, and this you have to be really careful. Some people like to ask, how long has the job been open? All right? How long has the job been open? Can you guys hear me? Somebody just sent me chat. Am I still on the line? All right, good. All right. So it's them, not me. All right. Catherine wants to know, if someone left, could you ask why? Yeah. All right, sure you can. But be careful about it. All right. Where were we? I forgot. I had a senior moment. Oh, yeah. How long has the position been open? If they tell you we've been looking for the last 13 months, would that be a red flag? What do you think? Would that be a red flag if they said it's been 9 or 13 months we've been looking? You betcha. Right? I'd want to know why. Are they microing it, so to speak? Why haven't they found somebody? So it's a question you may want to think about answering asking, depending on how the flow of the conversation is. Now, never wait to the end of the interview, all right, to ask, hey, I brought with me a list of questions. Can we go over them now? And bring the list, have it typed. Literally, take a piece of paper and type all these questions. Bring it with you. You're going to put it in your little carry-on portfolio you bring with you to the interview, amongst other things. And at an appropriate time, maybe in the first 15 minutes, I would bring it up. Well, Pete, I brought with me a list of questions. Would this be a good time to go over them? Sure, let's go over them, and then take them out of your portfolio. Don't wait to the very end of the interview when the interviewer says, hey, Sally, do you have any questions? All right, be proactive. All right, show interest. Be proactive during the interview process. All right? All right, Marcina or Paulina, I'm sorry. All right, but hang in there. All right, I can't go backward. I'm sorry. All right, let us do our yoga break. All right, let me type in here, yoga time. Let us take a 4 to 5 minute break. All right, stand up, mute your lines if they're not muted already. Stand up, go to the refrigerator. Try and get there, and you guys were good getting here early, at least 10 to 15 minutes. If you get there an hour early and sit in the parking lot, maybe somebody, a security guard, may knock on the window. What are you doing? Are you stalking us? So be careful. Now, we always recommend possibly doing a map quest maybe a couple of days ahead of time, or if you have GPS, do a trial run. If your interview's at 8:30 in the morning, even 9 o'clock, commuting time, you want to do your dry run a couple of days ahead of time around the same time. Because if you do it at 2 in the afternoon, traffic patterns might be different. All right, so do it around the same time. All right, but try and arrive and time it for about 10 to 15 minutes. The interview begins when you enter the building, which is true. Anybody you meet, the security guard, you may be given a badge, maybe a receptionist, somebody that escorts you to the conference room if it's a panel interview. You never know. So anybody you come in contact with, all right, be as professional, of course, as you can, because at the end of the day, they all get together. They all find a room, they go to the cafeteria, and they sit and talk about you, all right, and everybody else. So you don't want to kind of upset anybody, so try and be as professional with everybody you come in contact with. I'll tell you a cute little true story. About 3 or 4 years ago, a candidate of mine had a very unique situation. And her interview actually began in the parking lot. And she got to the building a couple of minutes, 10, 15, 20 minutes early. And when it was about 5 minutes to get out of her car, she does. And about 3 parking spots away from where she parked, there was a guy, and he gets out of his car. And he noticed her, and she noticed him. So they both started walking toward the building in unison. Said, are you a new employee? I have never met you, haven't seen you here. And she said, no, I have an interview with Mr. Johnson in about 10 minutes. He smiles and says, oh, I'm Mr. Johnson. All right, true story. So you never know. So the interview could actually be somebody in the parking lot. Louis, I'll let you know in a moment. Or Luis, I'll let you know in a moment. All right? So, that being said, you never know when the interview may begin. True story. Bring with you a couple of copies, one or two. I wouldn't bring a dozen, but, don't kill trees, don't waste paper. Bring a few copies of the exact resume. Remember, you're going to have lots of different flavors of them. Bring your reference list. And if you don't have a reference list yet, please take our Resume Essentials webinar. We talk about how to develop and put together a reference list. You never want to go to an interview without it, because if they ask you for it and you haven't put one together or forgot it, it's not a good thing. So bring your reference list with you to the interview. If appropriate, bring some samples of your work. All right. Bring a copy of the job description. Now, they marked up your resume, right? They want to know more. They marked it up. You do the same. Take that job description with your highlighter and bring it. Let them see you actually took the time to mark it up and to review it. All right. And if you have any questions, write your questions down in the margin as they're doing the same on your resume. Of course, bring a smile. Now, I'm hoping that many of you have one of these. All right. I put the arrow. Some sort of a mini briefcase or a portfolio. That is what or how you're going to bring your papers, your resume, your reference list, samples, all the stuff you want to bring just in case you need it. If you don't need it, that's okay. But if they ask for it and you don't have it, that's not a good thing. So bring something to carry all of your stuff in. Now, one of you chatted me, oh, he's not wearing a tie. Well, he might need to, but maybe he was told, or maybe he knows that the dress code is casual. So maybe they don't even wear sport jackets. So he's dressing one level up. And that may be fine. He may be in IT, something that does not require a tie. It's okay. But if you're not sure, I might recommend a tie. All right? But you could probably figure out whether you need it or not. But when in doubt, you might want to add it. All right? All right, Luis, it makes sense? All right, great. Also, take a look at the picture. What's he carrying in his right hand? Yeah, Starbucks, coffee, who knows? Tim Hortons. Carrying coffee. Leave it in the car. Even if it's a bottle of water, leave it in the car. Have a cell phone. Either leave it in the car. Not only vibrate, turn it off. OFF. Turn it off. All right? Even though if it could vibrate, they might pick it up or hear it. Literally, turn it off. You don't need it. All right? Some people want to know, should I bring my laptop? Well, if you think it's appropriate and it's part of their culture to use laptops, bring it. All right? You may not take it out of the portfolio that you brought with you or your laptop case, but have it available. All right? Things to think about during the day of the interview. A couple more. I'm not going to write this down, but I think it's common sense. Ladies and gentlemen, do not, NOT, wear any fragrances. Ladies, perfume, cologne, no. Eau de toilette, no. Guys, no aftershave, no cologne. People are allergic. Personal grooming. Now, check your shoes. A lot of people get really dressed up. They look great. But, you know what they forget? They forget to shine their shoes. All right? Seriously. They forget to shine their shoes. Kind of do a double check. Make sure your nails are clean. Brush your teeth. You know the drill. All right? So I really hopefully don't have to get into the personal hygiene part of it. But, yeah, definitely no fragrances. All right? I interviewed a young lady a couple of years ago. I got to tell you, I couldn't wait for her to leave. I was choking. All right? So please be careful. All right, let's see, from Dave, when you scout out to travel, you can scout out how many people dress there. Yeah, when you get there, good point, Dave. When you get there, I'm not asking you to stalk, but, maybe drive around a little bit if you can, and maybe if you get there early in the morning when people are arriving or leaving, or at lunchtime, people may be leaving for lunch, going somewhere else, see how they're dressed. All right. You may be told maybe your interview's on a Friday, and a lot of companies have dress down Friday. I don't care. All right. Forget that it's dress down Friday. You dress as you think they would, at least one level up. All right, except for that Friday. All right. Everybody okay? Too much yoga? All right, let's continue. Traditional versus behavioral questions. Back in the good old days, the roaring 20s, a long time ago, the dinosaur days, when questions would be asked, for those of you that are hiring managers, we ask questions differently back then than we do now. So consider these. Back in the old days, questions would be asked as follows, traditionally. Billy Bob, what is your management style? Now in 2017, hey, Billy Bob, can you give me an example or tell me a time your management style impacted the success of your team? Betty Lou, what are your weaknesses? Nowadays, 2017, Betty Lou, can you give me an example or a description where a weakness of yours impacted the project you were working on? Harry, what career goals have you met? Or Harry, can you give me an example? Tell me about a time when a goal of yours that you achieved in your last position. It all relates to SOAR, Situation, Obstacle, Action, Result. How many of you have taken the webinar? How many of you have taken the Creating Powerful Accomplishment Statements webinar? All right. A whole bunch of yeses, a couple of no's. Not yet, but registered? All right, good, Keith. Good to see that. All right. Congratulations for those that have. Do you like the idea of those that have? Do you like the concept? Do you like the idea behind it? They being able to talk about results and behaviorally style? All right, good. For those that haven't taken it, this is a little bit foreign, but please sign up for it as soon as possible. Not only is it important, but it's essential. All right? That's what I speak of. It's really essential. And the name of the webinar is called Creating Powerful Accomplishment Statements. Stephen, I'll mention it at the very end, all right? Creating Powerful Accomplishment Statements. You'll see it on one of the last slides. All right? It's a must. All right? It's a requirement of job search. It's a must. Now, at an interview, 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, here are some questions that probably most likely will be asked. Number 1, Gertrude, tell me about yourself. Hey, Gertrude, why did you apply for the job? What happened? Why are you looking? Why did you send me your resume? We discussed. Tell me about your last boss. Now, that's a traditional way of asking. I would ask it now in 2017. Hey, Bill, can you give me an example or time when you and your manager kind of had a slight disagreement about how to work on a project, and what was the resolution? How did you come to a meeting of the minds? That's how I would ask it. Where would you like to be in the next couple of years? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. What about your strengths and weaknesses? Hey, Jim, can you give me an example of a time a strength of yours or weakness impacted the project you were working on? And, of course, why should we hire you? All right, be prepared for those questions, commonly asked. All right, I'd bet $1.98 that you'll be asked those questions sometime, somewhere. All right, the dreaded salary question. How many of you might be losing sleep, all right, before? How many of you, I would say, are afraid, but really, God, this is really a toughie. What do I do? How many of you are concerned about that question? I'd like to kind of help you out, all right? So kind of make you feel a little bit more comfortable, about should this question come up. And there's a technique, and we use three concepts. Number 1 is defer. Number 2 is inquire. And number 3 is reveal. Early on in an interview, it's not to your advantage to possibly discuss money, direct compensation. You want to try and avoid, all right, not talking about money until maybe the end of the interview or maybe even the second round of an interview, maybe another day. So if you're ever asked at the beginning, hey, Gertrude, what did you earn or what are you looking for? You want to acknowledge, you do want to acknowledge the question, but you may want to respond this way. Well, Pete, before we discuss money or salary, direct compensation, I'd like to know a little bit more about the company, the responsibilities, and growth. All right, tell me more, tell me more. And also, I want you to learn a little bit more about me. So money is not really important or shouldn't be discussed early on. Now, maybe in the first 10, 15, 20 minutes of the interview, you want to defer as much as possible because it is not NOT to your advantage to talk about money. It may be to them, but it's not to you. At some point in time, maybe halfway through 25, 30, 35 minutes into the interview, based on the 1 hour, you may respond, well, Pete, what is the range? What is the range that the company is offering? I may tell you or I may not. All right, that's my option. Let us continue. At some point in time, you've been asked, what did you earn at? This has gone on and on and on for the last 15, 20, 30, 40 minutes. And at some point in time, your back is against the wall, and you may have to give. All right, you may now have to give a range. Well, Pete, based upon my research, remember we're going to look at salary.com, Glassdoor, Indeed, and everybody place else. Based upon my research, what I bring, my value, to you and the company, a range of 75 to 80 would be appropriate. If your research was accurate, and it should be, idea of what that range might be. And you're hoping that it's probably close or similar to what they are looking for. So let us now play a game, and the name of the game, and Sherry, I'll get with you in a moment, is known as the dreaded salary question game. All right, everybody, let's play a game. Remember we talked about a couple of minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes into the interview? When you walked in the door, all right, in the first 5, 10 minutes, an acronym that I share with everybody is DKY. And DKY stands for, take a guess. Don't be bashful. Don't be worried about it. Take a guess. DKY. Know yet, don't know you. Yeah, they don't know you and you don't know them. All right? The only thing you know about them is what you've read or researched, right, on the internet, job description. And what they know about you is what? What they've already read on your resume. That's it. No more. After some discussion, you get to KY. All right, KY stands for? Yeah, they know you. All right? So down here, you want to defer as much as possible. You still may want to defer in this period, 15, 20, 25 minutes, because I need to know more and they need to know more. It's not fair to talk about money until everything's literally on the table. Eventually, halfway through, plus or minus, you get to LY, which stands for? They like you. All right? This is where they like you. All right? KY, they know you. LY, they like you. Continuing, you may want to inquire again. At the LVY stage, all right, is when you may want to reveal. And LVY stands for what? They love you. All right? They do love you. So somewhere in that 60-minute or 50-minute mark is when you're going to reveal. All right? That's the idea. That's the theory behind this concept. Early on, don't talk about money. You may have to inquire, but what does GHY stand for? Gotta have you. There you go. You get it. Who's in control? Are you in control or are they in control at gotta have you? Bingo, you are. All right, you're in control. You've got the upper hand. So it's your advantage to try and avoid talking about money during the interview. All right? So if you remember back in the 60s, I think Rolling Stones had a hit song, Time is on Your Side. Anybody remember that? Time is on your side with the Rolling Stones. Guys, time is on your side. So please understand that you want to defer as long as you can, inquire possibly, and finally reveal. All right? So that is the concept and the theory behind the dreaded salary question. It works. Now, a couple of you sent me chats regarding actually applications online. Let me read. Hang on, let me go back. Sherry wants to know, salary history is asked sometimes on the online application. Do I need to answer that or could I leave it blank? Well, if you leave it blank and then you hit enter, all right, on the application on the internet, it may not fly. You may have to fill in a number. If you're required to fill a number in and it's not going to work without a number, make sure it's a number, Sherry, and everybody you can live with. All right, I say that emphatically. If the bottom number, bare minimum, is 76 or whatever the number is, put that number in there. And be fair about it. All right, and they'll be fair also. But if you can avoid putting a number in like, you may be able to put an expression like to be determined or upon interview, try and do it. But if you have to put a number in to let the application fly, make sure it's a number you could live with. Okay? Toward the higher side of your range. All right, number you could live with toward the higher side of your range. All right, how many of you remember? All right, one more. Valerie, how about the screening interview when it's asked possibly to either keep you in or screen you out? That, too, is something that you want to say, something like this. I'm not sure, this is kind of a preliminary interview. I'm not really sure about all the responsibilities. And, you probably don't know all about me. And is there any way we can kind of avoid or kind of table that to the actual interview? And they may say to you, no, I have to have a number. And in that case, like with Sherry, make sure it's a number you could live with. And also it's a number you've done your research with, and it's a number they could also live with. All right? But try and postpone money at any point if you can. But sometimes, guys, Sherry and everybody else, Valerie, your back's against the wall, and you don't have a choice. All right? It's reality. Our reality is you may not have a choice. But if you do, try and stall as long as you can. Okay? It's not only it's their advantage also, and yours. It's mutual. All right, how many of you remember a TV program back in the late 60s, game show, The Match Game? Gene Rayburn was the host. Anybody remember that? I know you're going to be dating yourself, but anybody remember it? They brought it back. Yeah. I got a couple oldies but goodies. One of you said afraid so. Well, I'm going to tell you a deep, dark secret. Yours truly, was a contestant on The Match Game TV program. I had my 30 minutes of fame back in 1968. And guess what? I won a lot of money. A boatload. All right? Guess what? $400. All right? I won $400 back in 1968. That was pretty good money back then. And that's what this is all about. The interview is all about the match game. Your ability to match your skills to what the company's needs are. Express interest. This is part of the closing of the interview. Express interest. Well, Pete, I'm excited. All right, this is great. I love it. In a way, I'm glad I lost my job because now I really think I'd want to work for you. Ask what the next steps are. This is also known as a trial close. Well, Pete, now that I know more about you, the company, the position, I know my skills of A, B, and C, X, Y, and Z will be of value to you. I'm excited. I'm interested in the opportunity of working for you, for this company. Awesome. What are the next steps? Be enthusiastic. Express interest. You got to ask it. The answer that you're hoping for is, well, Jim, you're one of now. We've narrowed it down, from 30 people to 3, and you're one of the 3 finalists. What are you doing next week? Can you come in next Tuesday? I'd like you to meet the director of operations. He asked me to set up a second round of interviews. I'll be there, and he would like to meet you and the other 2 candidates. That's a good answer, right? You'd love to hear that. Versus don't call us, we'll call you. Now, it may be, I'll give you a call next Wednesday. I'll send you an email. Now, if you don't hear from the company as they've told you they would let you know, you have to be proactive and either make a phone call or send an email. Why didn't I hear from you? All right? Now, how many of you ever heard of the expression, the squeaky wheel gets the oil? All right. Yes, the squeaky wheel does get the oil. All right, believe it or not. Especially if you're in sales. I got to tell you, In my early career, I was a sales manager for one of the divisions of Unilever. And when I interviewed people, all right, I waited for them to see how proactive and aggressive they would be. If I felt the person was proactive and asked like what the next steps are and kind of pushed me for an answer, that was something I possibly would consider hiring. If they kind of walked out of the room without shaking hands or just kind of leaving and not really asking or showing interest, they never got it. They never heard from me again. They got an email, but that was about it. So yeah, the squeaky wheel gets the old. Be proactive. One of you asked, Sherry, is it appropriate to ask during the interview where they are in the candidate search process? Yes. All right. Where are you? All right, and that's kind of another way of asking what the next steps are. After an interview, how long should you wait before you follow up? Ask, when will you get back with me? All right, I would do that. All right, Stephen, I would ask, when do you expect to get back to me? I'll get back, and the HR person says, I'll get back to you next Tuesday. Come Wednesday morning, you didn't hear from them, get on the phone, and also an email. Hit them twice. All right, phone call and email. All right. They say to you, call me next Wednesday, call them Wednesday. Now, people get sick, people go on PTO, people go on vacation, so there may be a reason you didn't hear from them, or something goes on, or something happens, their kid got sick, they took the day off. So also, take that into consideration. But I'd be aggressive. I'd be proactive. Yes, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. All right. And one of the ways you show express interest is being proactive. Brando wants to know, should I reveal if I have multiple interviews and possible offers? No. No. Don't try and play one against the other. It's not the best tactic. And Brando and everybody else, we cover that in our interviewing, in our negotiating and cultivating offers webinar. We talk about trying to pinpoint or pin one against the other. It normally doesn't work. All right. If you have two offers on the table, all right, you may put pressure on one, but understand which one you really want. If you have two offers, I'm sure they're both not equal. There's probably one that you like a little bit better than the other. So I would push for that one. All right, but don't try and pin one against the other. It doesn't work. All right, Ash just chatted me. In one interview, I asked about my career path, and the interviewer went south from there. It was going well until then. Why was this possibly the wrong question? I don't know. I really don't. I don't know why that would be a bad question. Because really you want to kind of know about progression. I would want to know if I'm applying for a job or getting a job and it's a dead-end street. To me, that's important, right? I'd want to know that. I don't like it, but I'd want to know it so I can make possible decisions around that. So I'm curious why that became a dead-end street. So maybe it's a good thing, Ash. Maybe it's a good thing it went south. All right, maybe it was a good thing. So I don't know if I'd want to work for a company that wouldn't help me or help me understand what the career path would be. Do you agree?
Can I speak?
Yeah. Sure, anybody can speak. Hello? Come on.
Oh, okay. Well, I think the reason was the interviewer said, well, you can have my job when I retire, which I really didn't understand that response, but...
Yeah, I don't either. People are funny. Yeah. Okay. It's up. Here's my philosophy. Remember we talked about competence, compatibility, and chemistry. Remember the chemistry of the love fast. If you get bad vibes about the interviewer or your boss, you need to be thinking, is this something I need to, or somebody I need to get involved with? And it may be a tough decision, and the decision may be no. This person may be a jerk, all right? So, that's why I say listen, écoutez, listen up. And there are clues, and some people inadvertently don't realize that they are giving you clues that might be to the negative, and that may be a reason they keep looking for people, because everybody they interview, by the time the interview's over, says to themselves, I wouldn't want to work for him. I wouldn't want to work for her. So that may be another reason for it. So yeah, it's definitely a red flag. Could be definitely a red flag.
I see.
Make sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
All right. All right. Thank you. Now, as I mentioned before, late in the afternoon, guess what? They're going to get together, right? The security guard, the receptionist, the administrative assistant, the hiring manager, HR, they're all going to get together, sit down in the cafeteria late in the afternoon before they go home. They're going to talk about you. They're going to debrief. So you're going to be sending some thank you notes. Now, I always recommend snail mail, all right? It's always good to get a nice written, not an email, but a written thank you note. Now, if you have a good handwriting, take it to the next level. A nice, thoughtful, handwritten thank you note is very, very well received. It's different. A lot of people don't. So it's a way to stand out from the rest of the crowd. I would never personally do a handwritten because I have terrible handwriting. I write really bad. You can't hardly read it. Some people like to do a double hit. They'll send an email out immediately, follow up that evening, and put it in the mail the next morning with a snail mail. It's kind of a double hit. That's up to you. But I think it's up to you, no matter what, to send a thank you note. Right. In your thank you note, your skills, how they match, remember the match game, the opportunity, and one more time, express interest and enthusiasm about joining the company and the people. Follow-up is agreed to. All right, don't call us, we'll call you. I'll call you next Wednesday, or call me next Thursday, whatever they request. Now, you're going to do some personal debriefing as they're doing their own. Look in a mirror. Seriously, sit down, look in a mirror, ask yourself, hey, Pete, how did I do? What questions did I do well? You may want to add some of that or reiterate it in the thank you note. And maybe there's something, well, you kind of messed up. All right, you kind of messed up, really didn't think you gave them the best answer you could have. You were caught off guard, and maybe it's time to kind of re-express it. That can be also added to the thank you note. So what questions do you think you possibly could have done or do over? Some next steps. Review and prepare. All right, prepare for all these different types of interviews. Just to give you kind of an overall view today. Practice all the potential interview questions. There's an old story. Now, it's kind of a cute story about this young lady who's lost. She's in New York City and Manhattan, and she has tickets to one of the most famous concert halls in New York. And the name of the concert hall is Carnegie Hall, right? I'm sure many of you know about Carnegie Hall. And she was lost. She's trying to get there. She stops somebody on the street and says, "Sir, can you help me? I'm lost. How do you get to Carnegie Hall?" And he replies, what do you think he replies? Anybody? Send me a chat. There you go. Practice. That's how you get to Carnegie Hall, and that's how you get a job. Practice it. Hard work. Work on and develop your targeted questions. Remember, it's a two-way street. Continue with whatever interview strategy you've worked on and planned. Plan your work your plan, including your follow-up. As I mentioned before, if you don't have a plan, you'll wind up where? Someplace else. All right? So get your planning and get your practicing done. All right, related webinars. Valerie just sent me a chat question. Let me read it. What is the best response for where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years? If I say in another position that might not make to invest in the company moving on, if you say stay in the slot looking, not growing for growth. I can't answer that question for you, Valerie. All I could say is you want to do the best job you can, and depending on the progression of the company, if it means moving forward and having you move forward, you'd love to do so. All right, but I would express that you want to do the best job you can with the job that you're given, and that based upon time, should opportunities arise, that you be considered for it. All right, so that's where I would see myself. Making a contribution. All right, honestly, making a contribution to the organization. All right. And a lot of these questions are also discussed in milestone number 9, all about interviewing. So the related webinars, and I'll type in one more, are interviewing practice. I call it interviewing 102. Communication strategy, all about your exit, why you left your former company, your positioning statement, known as Tell Me About Yourself, cultivating and negotiating offers, along with research tools on CRN to learn more about how to use Dun & Bradstreet and the Hoover's database. Now, I told you I would type in, excuse me, one more webinar, and let me type that in. All right. And there's a little bit of a typo, all right? I'm not going to go back over it. But it's creating powerful accomplishment statements, all right? So that's one more webinar I recommend taking, all right? I can't correct it, so for time's sake, all right, the word is powerful, all right? Accomplishment statements. All right. A couple more questions. In addition to dressing appropriately, what is the current norm for facial hair? I have heard a beard trimmed close, not all mountainish, for 10 years now, and my two youngest have no idea what I look like without it.